Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for Truth show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. It's a pleasure to be back with you again. And I'm your host, Dr. Ben Fialkoff. Many of you have been asking, how do I avail myself of all the previous episodes? Very, very simple. Go on YouTube, click on A Time for Truth show, find the subscribe button on the channel, click on that, and you'll be availed of all the previous episodes. We'll be more than happy to have you as a member. There's no cost, no fee, and you'll be able to watch all the amazing episodes with different techniques, philosophies, and ability to do and improve your life. And tonight, we're going to talk about such that because our world, as quickly as it becomes advanced technologically, it seems like the same pace is getting a little bit chaotic. Some people say a little bit chaotic. I think it's much more than chaotic, and maybe a little stressful. And stress causes problems, stress causes disease, physical, mental. Nobody wants to go there, so why go there? And so tonight's show is what can we do to go in a different direction? Not to go to chaos and stress, but is there happiness? Let's see. We'll find out in this show if we can head towards a happiness. And we're very lucky to have with us a very special man who has dedicated his life to actually making us happy. And through a lot of different modalities, Mr. Todd Jones, an engineer. There we go, if you put him up on the screen. And one of the modalities he uses is music, and not that he used, but that he uses. He's a guitarist, a old school rhythm and blues specialist, a jazz guitarist, and if he doesn't get you with music, he's a martial arts scientist. Because he's a good guy with the martial arts. And he's a black belt in karate, which involves his black belt in Japanese GoJu. There you see him. Okinawa GoJu. And Sanuces JiuJitsu. There you see him as the expert he is in helping us to learn, and especially with education. And he's an education specialist and an actual trained Scientology course supervisor, where he applies very specific techniques, not to teach you, but very interestingly, to allow you to learn. And interestingly, because, it's a different philosophy. It's where you're not being forced to do something, but you're actually being guided. So you can find out, that's why I didn't understand. And there you see him in that function there on the screen. And Buddha, if you will, let's bring him up live. And we'll bid a warm welcome to Professor, martial artist, black belt, nice guy, Todd Jones.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, there's so many different things you've been involved in. So I wanted to ask you, how is it? Let's start out, I guess, first. Let's start with the music.
Okay.
So how did the music start?
How did it really start? Well, my mother and father appreciated music a lot. Always heard jazz around the house. Was always music playing. I'm the youngest of the family. I'm the youngest of 5. So my brothers and sisters listened to their music, and they all had some instrument or other. And so once I got around friends, actually, you mentioned the martial arts early. Some friends that I used to train with had a band, and I noticed when one of the band members would show up late, like the bass player or the guitar player, I would pick it up and fiddle with it. And so one day his sister said, Todd, why don't you just really go ahead and just learn it? And that was the beginnings.
Wow. Yeah. So then, so actually the martial arts came before the music?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, so let's go. What is it? I mean, and I know many times what I've done came out of things that I encountered in my life. So tell us about your journey in life and what it was that led you to martial arts.
Okay. So basically, again, like I said, I'm the youngest of the family. My brother, my older brother, he's the oldest, was into martial arts. He was into a style that's become popular now, but at that time, it was really not that well known, and that was Taekwondo. Right. He studied under a master by the name of, what was his name now? It'll come to me. Anyway, it was Taekwondo. It'll come to me because you don't hear about him anymore. Bottom line is, being an older brother, looked up to him. I want to imitate him. So as a kid, about 8 years old, I was just doing it because he was doing it. You know what I mean, kind of thing. But it stuck with me. And then when I got in my latter years, my preteens, I really had a liking of moving the body, right? I might have become a dancer if that was available to me, but it really wasn't. So martial arts was the thing. Okay, I can move my body and this is good. Secondary, it was as a self-defense. You know, it was a secondary thing. And his teacher taught him something that always stuck with me. And that was, his teacher told him to stick out your arm and look at your fingertips and compare those to the length of your arm. And he said the fighting aspect of the martial art is like comparing your fingertips to your arm. So there's all this to be gotten out of that kind of training and living as opposed to the fighting part. So it stuck with me.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And also, I guess he was trying to say is to go to utilizing as much as you can before you get to the point that you have to.
Absolutely.
That's what you were saying too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's why you'll find most people that train, they're very peaceful, they're very relaxed. You know, it's kind of like, goes to other things that I learned later when I became a supervisor about confront. If you can confront something, then you can handle it. And so you're usually more peaceful about it. So once a person loses the fear of combat, then he's more relaxed. So he's not anxious. It's kind of like the small dog, big dog thing. Little dogs are always, because if you step on them, they're gone. Big dog is like, don't worry about it. So it's kind of that thing. So it relaxes. You can confront it so you don't have to be anxious about it.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so you started into that. And now, so when you first, like I know you were emulating your brother, so I guess maybe it never dawned on you, but did you ever have a point where you thought, well, geez, am I going to be good enough for this? Or?
Yeah, because at that time, in my peer group, it was a common thing. A lot of people were practicing martial arts.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was healthy competition though, because we were all friends.
All right.
So, but it was a lot different. I'm laughing because even though we were friends, the competition back then, there was no safety punch and kick.
No.
It was all bare knuckles. So what we did was we basically said no punching to the face, but you could punch to the body pretty hard, right? But there wasn't this safety thing. So it's interesting, as I'm telling you this, the benefit of that was that you really gained a more healthy respect because you're training with someone that you knew and was your friend. So you're trying to develop this skill, but at the same time, you respect him so you don't really want to hurt him. Whereas now you got this safety thing on, so there's a little less care, you know?
It's more automatic.
Yeah, it's more automatic.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And then, so now you're a musician, you told us how you get into the music, you have the martial arts, you become a black belt. So then how do you then become this supervisor in Scientology? I mean, and what is that also? Tell me.
Right. Well, it kind of dovetailed because when I started hearing about Scientology and how to become a supervisor, or the supervisor came later, just the idea of learning, right, sparked me because that was always an interest to me. I was always trying to learn mysteries. I like mysteries. I'm like that guy that watches the mystery channels, right? So that gave me a way to understand things, to unlock things that seem hard to others to understand.
Right.
And so that fascinated me. And so that's when I got into that. And then I had the opportunity to train to help others do that. And so that was always a great joy of mine to be able to help others. So becoming a supervisor was just a natural way to go.
That makes total sense. And then you were telling me about this program. It's called The Way to Happiness, right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, The Way to Happiness is, it sets out different precepts of what people can look at as virtues, because it's been found that basically people want to be good, right? It's only when they get their feathers ruffled or something where they become agitated and they act out, as we say. But basically people want to be good. So the precepts of The Way to Happiness are just the basic guidelines of those things that you would kind of like want to happen to you and how you can live a life sharing that with others. And that response gives you a roadway to live a life of happiness. And at the same time, you'll find you're getting it back from others.
Well, that sounds very good. And you know, engineer, we have a few videos that Mr. Jones brought us. Please play the first video for our viewers.
13. Do not steal. When one does not respect the ownership of things, his own possessions and property are at risk. A person who, for one reason or another, has been unable to honestly accumulate possessions can pretend that nobody owns anything anyway. But don't try to steal his shoes. A thief sows the environment with mysteries. What happened to this? What happened to that? A thief causes trouble far in excess of the value of things stolen. Faced with the advertising of desirable goods, torn by the incapability of doing anything valuable enough to acquire possessions, or simply driven by an impulse, those who steal imagine they are acquiring something valuable at low cost. But that is the difficulty. The cost.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So tell me, give me a little glimpse. How does it work?
Well, the interesting thing is, you know, for the video, they showed like big examples of stealing, right? Like a car or something like that. But what I found in applying The Way to Happiness to myself is even sometimes little things. I used to confession, right? I have this thing, I love pens. So I'd have this thing where there was this really nice pen laying on the desk and all day nobody's taking it. Oh, I guess they really don't want it, right? I'm justifying stealing this pen, right? But I realized I would start to feel guilty, like it just wasn't mine to take, you know? So the respect of others' properties and things like that, that little thing, that little infraction could make the environment to that person who now doesn't have their pen feel a little uneasy. So it doesn't have to be theft in a big place. It could be even coming in late and you're stealing time. So someone who had to cover for you, other things that had to be shifted around, now that makes the environment a little uneasy. So just the idea of basically being out exchange, right? Stealing is just being out. You're not really being fair to your other fellow person or your environment. So even in those little ways, by realizing that and straightening out and not doing that, for one thing, I could breathe easier, right? I feel more relaxed, I feel good. And you kind of attract that too. And so you find people feel easy around you, and you can like pass that on if you notice with them that, you know, hey, this is not right. And it makes the environment really nice.
It's very interesting because you got me to thinking as you were talking about that you're right, because it's almost like if I had to do that, I'm stealing something good out of the environment. And by stealing it, I make it like a mystery. I took it away. Right. These other people are wondering, or they get annoyed and angry. Right. And I actually, even though I stole thinking I was going to gain something, I stole, but then I actually lost too, because now I lost the safety of my own environment because these people are all annoyed at me, or they're annoyed at the world, which in the end result is like I feel like, geez, everybody's annoyed around me.
That's right.
I hate to say it, but you know what that sounds like? Mm-hmm. Not everywhere and not everyone, mm-hmm. but that almost seems like something in our world that even in New York City that we're suffering from. Mm. Because I see a lot of times I'm on the highway and I'm just trying to get on the highway, and boy, they're coming like rocket ships,
right?
And they just don't let you in,
right?
And so that's an example of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good example. Basic road rage is what? Somebody stole your place, right? They really wasn't their turn, right? Or they don't belong there, but they go there.
No respect.
So that, yeah.
Wow.
Simple precept.
Yeah. You know what? It makes one stop and think, because we have so much technology, it seems like who cares about anybody else, right? I mean, I don't know. Would you agree with that?
It seems that way.
Right?
Yeah. It tends to make us detached sometimes.
Right. Like things are just there, and it doesn't matter where they came from.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, Buddha, you know what? He gave us another video, and it's kind of interesting because it's kind of like off of what he's talking about right now. So let's play the video because it matches really well where we are. So let's play the second video, please.
18. Respect the religious beliefs of others. Tolerance is a good cornerstone on which to build human relationships. When one views the slaughter and suffering caused by religious intolerance down all the history of man and into modern times, one can see that intolerance is a very non-survival activity. Religious tolerance does not mean one cannot express his own beliefs. It does mean that seeking to undermine or attack the religious faith and beliefs of another has always been a short road to trouble. Philosophers since the times of ancient Greece have disputed with one another about the nature of God, man, and the universe. The opinions of authorities ebb and flow. Just now, the philosophies of mechanism and materialism, dating as far back as ancient Egypt and Greece, are the fad. They seek to assert that all is matter and overlook that, neat as their explanations of evolution may be, they still do not rule out additional factors that might be at work, that might be merely using such things as evolution. They are today the official philosophies and are even taught in schools. They have their own zealots who attack the beliefs and religions of others. The result can be intolerance, and contention. If all the brightest minds since the 5th century BC or before have never been able to agree on the subject of religion or anti-religion, it is an arena of combat between people that one would do well to stay out of. In this sea of contention, one bright principle has emerged. The right to believe as one chooses. Faith and belief do not necessarily surrender to logic. They cannot even be declared to be illogical. They can be things quite apart. Any advice one might give another on this subject is safest when it simply asserts the right to believe as one chooses. One is at liberty to hold up his own beliefs for acceptance. One is at risk when he seeks to assault the beliefs of others, much more so when he attacks and seeks to harm them because of their religious convictions. Man, since the dawn of the species, has taken great consolation and joy in his religions. Even the mechanist and materialist of today sound much like the priests of old as they spread their dogma. Men without faith are a pretty sorry lot. They can even be given something to have faith in. But when they have religious beliefs, respect them. The way to happiness can become contentious when one fails to respect the religious beliefs of others.
Amazing.
Yeah,
All I can say is beautiful. So I'll let you comment.
Wow, that's a great video. I've seen it many times, but it's like seeing it anew again. You know, it's important because it's kind of like, I don't know if I get it exactly right, but there's this thing where there's certain type of people or personality that just seeks to bring out the worst in people, put it that way. And they may attack you or they may attack others. And the thing is, I forget how it goes, but it's like they came for one group and I didn't say anything, and they came for another group and I didn't say anything, and they came for another group and I didn't say anything, then they came for me, and there were no groups to defend me, right? So the concept is that understand that even if you're not being attacked or your faith or what you believe in is being attacked, that it's just, it's not a right thing to do, to at least respect. And again, they show like a broad concept. For me, it doesn't mean that you respect it, meaning that you revere it on most high or whatever, but just that you can acknowledge that, okay, that's how you feel, that's what you believe, you know, and just grant them the beingness and their right to believe that thing. So it's a simple thing, but I think it's best understood for me when I feel how I feel if somebody transgress against that. And so I realized, okay, so I don't want that to happen to me. So even if I don't agree with the other person, I don't do that. If I, don't agree, I go, okay, I got it. It's maybe not for me, but you're welcome to believe that,
Very interesting, because I can see, and it opened up my eyes to something, that would lead to a lot of solutions in our world where we have all this prejudice, or you're wrong, this is how you're supposed to do it, or this is the way it is. It almost makes it more like when we were young and you thought anything was possible. And you didn't kill each other, you played more of a game. And it's quite interesting.
Yeah, a good example. When you said when you were young, I had a flashback of all the different kinds of personalities and all the different things that the friends I played with came from. We didn't all practice the same religion. We didn't all come from the same way of being raised. But when we were in the sand lotto playing what they call whatever football without the pads, right?
Touch football.
Sandlot, no, we weren't playing touch. You know, they call it sandlot ball. We were actually tackling each other, but we found a grassy area where we wouldn't hurt each other too bad.
Right.
You know, but when you said that, I had a flash. Yeah, when we were together, we just enjoyed each other for who we were. We didn't get into that we had to be against the person because they didn't believe the way I did or the way the other person did.
Very interesting. And so this is the way to happiness.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. It's quite eye-opening, because you said there's 21 principles in this book?
Yes, 21 precepts. Yes.
Wow. And then we've only looked at 2.
Right.
And look at what's already on this show with just 2 precepts. And to me, when we look at even the news media making all this controversy, and you go, well, why should they be making controversy instead of maybe like what you do, is letting people understand, you know, and so they can be more educated.
Right.
You know, and makes me wonder about what is education then? Is education just reading what somebody else told me to think, or to actually making up my own ideas?
Right. More the latter. Absolutely. Because there's a thing that how students, their eyes brighten up when they get this particular fundamental that we operate on. Like they'll be reading something and they'll realize they don't quite agree with the way the person's doing it in that example. And they'll get a frown or whatever. I'm like, how's it going? They're like, well, I don't know if I can do this because I don't agree with that. And my response is, okay, do you understand it? Is there any word there you don't get? And they'll explain it and they got it. Oh, you got it. Yeah, but I don't agree with it. I'm like, well, that's okay. There's a principle where the student should have the right to disagree with what he's studying. How else are you going to really discern what's for you? And then they find out, oh, well, I just wouldn't have did it that way, but I would have did it this way. Well, okay, it's a tool. So that's an interesting point, you know.
Very interesting. Now, as the viewers are watching this, probably saying, where am I supposed to go? So where can they go if they want to learn more? Where can they go?
Well, right here in New York, you can go to Harlem. On 125th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenue. We have 2 buildings. One is our org, where most of the things are done. You can take a course there and so forth. And we also have a community center. And if you're a community person or you have a something that you want to bring to the community, this is there for you. It's your community center. So you can come down and you can help the community.
Very interesting. Well, you know what? As I'm listening to you, watching the videos and this way to happiness, I gotta say, this guy Hubbard seems like he was quite a character.
He was quite a character. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, because just listening to 2 of these videos, or watching these 2 videos and listening, and being with you, and very interesting. Here you are. You're like musician, martial artist, and spiritual guide. Interesting. Yeah. Well, you know what? I want to thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
It's amazing. You know what? I definitely can see how we can implement this, and let's take a look at like what this martial artist, jazz musician, you know, specialist in education, check out this Way to Happiness, and maybe visit this organization in Harlem or get it online at Way to Happiness, I think it's .org probably. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you again. Thank you very much. I'd like to see more of this kind of show.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jones. You know what? If those of you out there would like to contribute, you can go on Time for Truth and do so. But in any case, keep watching. It's free to you. And we'll see you on the next episode of a Time for Truth show. Be happy.
Awesome.
This show was sponsored by Atimefortruthfoundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet